bhavatu sahano bhunaktu saha viryam karavavai tejasvina vaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. So yes, page 91, we're told. Page 91, Maya and Freedom. It's recorded that Swami Vivekananda delivered this talk in London on the 22nd of October, 1896. Maya and Freedom, Chapter 5 of Jnana Yoga. Trailing clouds of glory we come, says the poet. Not all of us come trailing clouds of glory, however. Some of us come as trailing black fogs. Some of us come as trailing black fogs. There can be no question about that. But every one of us comes into this world to fight as on a battlefield. We come here weeping to fight our way as well as we can and to make a path for ourselves through this infinite ocean of life. Forward we go, having long ages behind us and an immense expanse beyond. So on we go till death comes and takes us off the field, victorious or defeated, we do not know. And this is Maya. Hope is dominant in the heart of childhood. The whole world is a golden vision to the opening eyes of the child. He thinks his will is supreme. As he moves onward, at every step, nature stands as an adamantine wall, barring his future progress. He may hurl himself against it again and again, striving to break through. The further he goes, the further recedes the ideal, till death comes, and there is release, perhaps, and this is Maya. A man of science rises. He is thirsting after knowledge. No sacrifice is too great, no struggle too hopeless for him. He moves onward, discovering secret after secret of nature, seeking out the secrets from her innermost heart. And what for? What is it all for? Why should we give him glory? Why should he acquire fame? Does not nature do infinitely more than any human being can do? And nature is dull, insentient. Why should it be glory to imitate the dull, the insentient? Nature can hurl a thunderbolt of any magnitude to any distance. If a man can do one small part as much, we praise him and laud him to the skies. Why? Why should we praise him for imitating nature, imitating death, imitating dullness, imitating insentience? The force of gravitation can pull to pieces the biggest mass that ever existed, yet it is insentient. What glory is there in imitating the insentient? Yet we are all struggling after that. And this is Maya. The senses drag the human soul out. Man is seeking for pleasure and for happiness where it can never be found. For countless ages, we are all taught that this is futile and vain. There is no happiness there, but we cannot learn. It is impossible for us to do so except through our own experiences. We try them and a blow comes. Do we learn then? Not even then. Like moths hurling themselves against the flame, we are hurling ourselves again and again into the sense pleasures, hoping to find satisfaction there. We return again and again with freshened energy. Thus we go on, till, crippled and cheated, we die. And this is Maya. Can someone tell me why the Swami is painting such a bleak picture? Why is the Swami giving us such a dose of bitterness, bitter medicine?
Is this a trick question?
No, it's not a trick question.
Well, I think it is. I agree with him, but I'm going to be quiet because Jaime has something probably more interesting to say.
You can go ahead, Cindy. I was just going to comment something.
No, go ahead. I'm just,
Okay.
yeah.
Brother Shankar, I was just thinking when you're reading, it's like these are the common things we all go through in life. I think that's what I feel. You know, these are the common things, sensual pleasures. We try these, we try those, but nothing really makes us get the illumination, you know, make us illuminated person. That's what I think he's getting to slowly. These are the things. That's my feeling. What do you think, Brother Shankar?
Well, I'd like to hear from anyone else who'd like. Thank you, Jaime. That was very well said.
Sure.
Anything else?
Hello, Brother Shankara. This is Rishikesh. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, Rishikesh, we can hear you.
Yeah, I was, that word was a little difficult. I had to quickly look up the meaning, insentient. I wonder why the nature is being called dull. I think nature is one of the most exciting and vibrant things. And that is, yeah. I mean, it doesn't answer your question. I'm just curious why we are calling nature so dull and insentient.
Well,
It's interesting.
we'll see if we can let the Swami explain. He does explain.
Oh,
I,
yeah, but
go ahead. Somebody.
I was just saying I don't know why I couldn't answer the question that Brother Shankar asked. Yeah.
Okay, so
I think maybe the part of why he's painting such a bleak picture is when he says the senses drag the human soul out. Man is seeking for pleasure and for happiness where it can never be found. In other words, we need to turn away from seeking pleasure in this physical world and look for something higher. I think that's why he's painting a bleak picture.
very good.
I was just going to add, Brother Shankara, that we are always looking external, not to be able to find. That is the one thing I wanted to add to that. Always man is looking outside. That's not where it is. And then he will get to the inside later on, probably. So that's all. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jaime.
Maybe he's trying to.
Go ahead, please.
I think by using such strong language, maybe he's trying for us to challenge him, challenge the thinking, and really kind of come to the conclusion ourselves.
Very well said. And somewhat close to the truth that I'm going to, at least the version that I'm going to talk about in a moment. But Cindy, did you have anything to add?
No, thanks. Just go ahead. I'll wait and hear what's said next. Thanks.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, please, Swam.
I think nature gets this exciting appearance and sentiency only because of Brahman. If we get excited thinking that nature is exciting and sensuous, that's sort of what keeps us limited, like the upadhis, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I think just being attracted to nature and imitating that does not seem to be a worthwhile pursuit.
Well said. It's always good for us to remember the context in which the Swami was speaking. He was speaking to an audience in London in 1896 that was largely persuaded of Dr. Pangloss's formula. Every day in every way, things are getting better and better. And the comment that was made that he wanted the audience to challenge him is absolutely dead on. And one of his, well, perhaps his most prominent disciple, Sister Nivedita, was in these audiences, and she did challenge him. She would stay after class and just absolutely go at him hammer and tongs because she came from this Christian tradition. She was an Irish Catholic. She came from this Christian tradition that at the time was teaching perfectibility. Along with that was this idealism, which is a part of Dr. Pangloss. That I said Dr. Pangloss. That's a figure in fiction. I can't remember the name of the fictional work. But his mantra was, every day in every way, things are getting better and better. And the Swami was absolutely assailing that whole frame of reference. And of course, things are not so very different today. We have a science industry, an advertising industry, many people who are trying to persuade us that life in the world is getting better because of scientific and technological advances and all of the wonderful things that we have that we can reach out and buy. And by the way, don't worry about putting them on credit. In other words, don't worry about mortgaging your future. So the Swami was being so fierce because he was confronting an audience, and I use the word confronting very consciously. He was confronting them with a very different truth than the truth that they had been imbibing from their childhood, as he was talking about childhood. So it's important to remember when we listen to these talks that the audience that the Swami was speaking to and why he was speaking to them in that way. That's the assertion from here in any case, that it's useful for us to keep that in mind. Anything else from anyone before we move on? This is why this is a class, not a lecture. Okay. So the Swami is now going to turn to what most people think of as their interior self. So it is so with our intellect. In our desire to solve the mysteries of the universe, we cannot stop our questioning. We feel we must know and cannot believe that no knowledge is to be gained. A few steps, and there arises the wall of beginninglessness and endless time, which we cannot surmount. A few steps, and there appears a wall of boundless space, which cannot be surmounted. And the whole is irrevocably bound in the walls of cause and effect. We cannot go beyond them, yet we struggle and still have to struggle. And this is Maya. So I'm going to read that again because this is what most people identify with their inner self, their intellect, that which appreciates science and art and the more refined things. They think of this as their inner being. The Swami will tell us otherwise. So with our intellect, in our desire to solve the mysteries of the universe, we cannot stop our questioning. We feel we must know and cannot believe that no knowledge is to be gained. A few steps, and there arises the wall of beginningless and endless time, which we cannot surmount. A few steps, and there appears a wall of boundless space, which cannot be surmounted, and the whole is irrevocably bound in by the walls of cause and effect. We cannot go beyond them, yet we struggle and still have to struggle, and this is Maya. So he just summarized the futility of the intellect's attempt at resolving time, space, and causation. The exitless maze that is the mind. With every breath, with every pulsation of the heart, with every one of our movements, we think we are free. And the very same moment, we are shown that we are not. Bound slaves, nature's bond slaves, in body, in mind, in all our thoughts, in all our feelings. And this is Maya. With every breath, with every pulsation of the heart, with every one of our movements, we think we are free. And the very same moment, we are shown that we are not. Bound slaves, nature's bond slaves, in body and mind, in all our thoughts, in all our feelings. And this is Maya. So now he's dealt with time, space, and causation. Now he's dealt with thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. All of this is Maya. There was never a mother who did not think her child was born genius, the most extraordinary child that was ever born. She does not. She dotes upon her child. There was never a mother who did not think her child was a born genius, the most extraordinary child that was ever born. She dotes upon her child. Her whole soul is in the child. The child grows up and perhaps becomes a drunkard, a brute, ill-treats the mother, and the more he ill-treats her, the more her love increases. The world lauds it as the unselfish love of the mother, little dreaming that the mother is a born slave. She cannot help it. She would 1,000 times rather throw off the burden, but she cannot. So she covers it with a mass of flowers, which she calls wonderful love. And this is Maya. So the Swami has dealt with time, space, and causation. He's dealt with thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. And now he's dealt with the most laudable human love, that of a mother for her child. And he says, this is all Maya. It's all a form of slavery. We are all like this in the world. A legend tells how once Narada said to Krishna, Lord, show me Maya. A few days passed away, and Krishna asked Narada to make a trip with him toward a desert. And after walking for several miles, Krishna said, Narada, I'm thirsty. Can you fetch some water for me? I will go at once, sir, and get you water. So Narada went. At a little distance, there was a village. He entered the village in search of water and knocked at a door, which was opened by a most beautiful young girl. At the sight of her, he immediately forgot that his master was waiting for water, perhaps dying for the want of it. He forgot everything and began to talk with the girl. All that day he did not return to his master. The next day he was again at the house talking to the girl. That talk ripened into love. He asked the father for the daughter, and they were married, and they lived there and had children. Thus 12 years passed. His father-in-law died. He inherited his property. He lived, as he seemed to think, a very happy life with his wife and children, his fields and his cattle and so forth. Then came a flood. One night the river rose until it overflowed its banks and flooded the whole village. Houses fell, men and animals were swept away and drowned, and everything was floating in the rush of the stream. Narada had to escape. With one hand he held to his wife, and with the other, 2 of his children. Another child was on his shoulders. He was trying to ford this tremendous flood. After a few steps, he found the current was too strong, and the child on his shoulders fell and was borne away. A cry of despair came from Narada. In trying to save that child, he lost his grasp upon one of the others, and it also was lost. At last his wife, whom he clasped with all his might, was torn away by the current, and he was thrown onto the bank. Weeping and wailing in bitter lamentation. Behind him there came a gentle voice. My child, where is the water? You went to fetch a pitcher of water, and I am waiting for you. You have been gone for quite half an hour. Half an hour, Narada exclaimed. 12 whole years had passed through his mind, and all these scenes had happened in that hour. And this is Maya.
What a beautiful story.
What did you say, Haima? I'm sorry.
What a beautiful story, Brother Shankara. What an eye-opener. It's a very common
Yes,
thing. Get illusioned by things in life.
yes. It
It's
is.
very
It is. It is a story that would be praised by the likes of Shakespeare and Faulkner and Dickens and Tagore.
That's true.
It's a very moving story.
Extremely.
Any other comments about this story?
He started out with, we are all like this in this world, which is very true. Often beings can get carried away with something not, all materialistic
And yet, in cosmic terms, as Krishna said to him, you've been gone for quite half an hour.
I know, half an hour, 12
For
years.
Narada, it had been 12 years.
Yes, 12 whole years.
Time,
Very touching.
as time, as Einstein said, is nothing more than a stubborn illusion. And this is Maya. Anything else before we go on?
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Yes, Aaron.
Sometimes I suppose it's natural, but sometimes I become uneasy with like passing of time, like just realizing that I'm getting older, and like I'm not gonna be in forever. Trying to figure out, like, I don't know. I lost the point that I was getting at. But
Yes, we get uneasy. That uneasiness is holy. That uneasiness is what will, if we allow it to us, allow it to awaken us to the need for pursuing real freedom. Anything else?
I've noticed Swami Harinamananda is also a fan of Pink Floyd, and in the Pink Floyd song Time, it says, and then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. That's so true. The days are short, but the days are long, but the decades are short. Like 10 years is like, where did the time go?
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, Brother Shankara, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So the way I'm looking at all this, and for me, putting myself in a Narad situation, right? We have all these issues in our lives. There are sometimes we are totally helpless, like how Narad was in this case, saving his wife and children. I'm just saying, as an analogy, that in our life we are helpless. What I have taken away from all these lectures lately, and with this word Maya, is at the end of the day, I tell myself, okay, if this is Maya and this is what it is, for me, it is best to leave the rest to God, do whatever best I can. There is a plan out there. I should not distract myself. God will take care of me in some Maya, that if this is Maya, then God will take care of things, and just move on and do what is right. I think that is just a takeaway for me with all this, the strength I get from this word Maya and all that.
Well, Rishikesh, you will find that the Swami adamantly disagrees with you.
Okay.
About your helplessness and about the fact that God will take care of it.
Well, what I meant by that is I have done my best as a human. Rest is whatever the fate is or whatever that Maya is. And I should not fret upon it. Sometimes that description that Swamiji had, that you try this, you try that, this is in my control, I've got to be doing this. All of that is what I'm now, lately I'm saying, no need to do that.
The Swami will tell us, as this talk develops, why we are not helpless, why we are able, as we awaken, to change our fate and not just grasp at freedom, which is what we're doing in the life of Maya, but really attain freedom.
Got
So
it.
it isn't that I'm disagreeing with you.
Yeah. No, all good, all good.
I hear exactly what you're saying, but you'll find that the Swami does indeed assert a very strong and powerful counter argument to what you just said.
Wonderful.
But we will find that we will become helpless if we don't engage in spiritual practice. I mean, is that correct? If we refuse spiritual practice and don't have a like relationship with Ramakrishna or any other holy figure, then or a Swami, or so to speak, then won't we helpless in that situation?
That's exactly
Or,
why Swami Vivekananda was in London in 1896, to offer these people that hand. A few, about a half a dozen, accepted his invitation, especially Margaret Noble, who became Sister Nivedita. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Brother Shankara Rishikesh again. All I'm saying is in succinct that this whole notion of Maya just grounds me, just calms me down and says, okay, fine, this is it. Don't worry. Ultimately, it's whatever. Let's call it Maya, for example. Okay.
Yeah, we should simply, as the Swami will tell us, simply observe Maya and not let it disturb us. But
Yes.
to be grounded is to be grounded in that witness consciousness, not in our intellectual grasp of Maya.
Got it. Great point.
Brother Shankara, while we're on the topic of Maya, I was hoping maybe you or anybody else here could kind of clarify something for me. I mean, right? I mean, if we get down to it, isn't Swami Vivekananda also part of Maya, and the words that we're reading out of these texts? I mean, isn't that Maya as well, or is that something else?
Oh, absolutely. There is no question. And he will tell us that himself. And I don't know in this particular talk, but he will tell us that himself. And that's why he says, you must go beyond Maya. This is the message of Vedanta. You must go beyond Maya. His words, even through Ramakrishna's words and appearance, Holy Mothers, all of them were signs pointing the way.
Thank you. Very helpful. Thank you.
Alarm bells waking us up. So good point. Yes, the Swami. And if you read his letters, if you read Swami's letters, Swami Vivekananda's letters, you'll find how keenly aware he was of just exactly what you said. This is excellent discussion. This is exactly what we should be doing in a class, is surfacing these kinds of thoughts and coming to some understanding before we move on.
One more comment, Brother Shankara.
Yes,
If
dear.
Swami is telling us that we're all in this thing, and then he will slowly lead us to the freedom, the liberation, how we're going to attain Maya and freedom. I see that he is slowly taking us from one step at a time towards the self-realization. That's what it is. First, these are all common for all of us. We all have to do the responsibilities, like Mr. Joshi said, wife, husband. But the point here is not the story. He forgot the water. He forgot that to bring water back to Krishna, and he got illusioned by the whole sensual pleasures, and then he got involved into it, totally drawn into it until he lost everything. Then he realized, oh my God.
Well, he didn't yet realize it
Didn't
was
even realize it.
Krishna. It was Krishna, as Swami Ranganathananda points out in Divine Grace.
He reminded.
When we come to the fulfillment
Yeah,
of our human personality,
yeah,
and we've expanded as much as we can in this Maya context,
yes,
then Krishna taps us on the shoulder from behind and says two things.
yeah.
First, it was me carrying you all along, and by the way, I have something else to show you.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Divinity, divine power tests us every single day, every single moment in our life. It
Yes.
depends on how we get drawn into that. What are the stuff that we can get drawn, or what are the stuff we shouldn't be getting absorbed by those?
That's where the Swami's going to.
That's where he's leading us to.
Right.
That's what I'm grasping. Thank you so much.
So, Bart, did you have something?
I had a question for anyone, just to tie this together with the piece that we have to understand we are not the doer, and that we have to give up our obsession and investment in results. Because for me, I seem to keep going down into deeper and deeper levels of rabbit holes. And so I just want to throw that out there and see if I can tie it together to what we read.
Well, what you got here, Bart, is two parallel tracks. What you've done is jumped tracks.
Okay.
The Swami will definitely lead us to the idea that you are not the doer, that Maya is the doer.
Okay.
But that's not where he's right now. What he's right now is convincing us, and it's in the very next sentence.
Okay.
And it points exactly to the comment that was made: is the Swami himself not part of Maya?
Mm.
In one form or another, we are all in it, Maya. In one form or another, we are all in it. It is a most difficult and intricate state of things to understand. It has been preached in every country, taught everywhere, but only believed in by a few. Because until we get the experiences ourselves, we cannot believe in it. What does it show? Something very terrible. For it is all futile. Time, the avenger of everything, comes, and nothing is left. He swallows up the saint and the sinner, the king and the peasant, the beautiful and the ugly. He leaves nothing. Everything is rushing toward that one goal, destruction. Our knowledge, our arts, our sciences, everything is rushing toward it. None can stem the tide. None can hold it back for a minute. We may try to forget it in the same way that persons in a plague-stricken city try to create oblivion by drinking, dancing, and other vain attempts. and so becoming paralyzed. Does that sound a little familiar? In the
A
same
little too familiar right now, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Exactly. In the same way that persons in a plague-stricken city may try to create oblivion by drinking, dancing, and other vain attempts, and so becoming paralyzed. So we are trying to forget, trying to create oblivion by all sorts of sense pleasures. And this is Maya. Two ways have been proposed. One method, which everyone knows, is very common, and that is, it may be very true, but do not think of it. Make hay while the sun shines, as the proverb says. It is all true. It is a fact, but do not mind it. Seize the few pleasures you can. Do what little you can. Do not look at the dark side of the picture, but always toward the hopeful, the positive side. There is some truth in this, but there is also a danger. The truth is, it is a good motive power. Hope and a positive ideal are very good motive powers for our lives. But there is a certain danger in them. The danger lies in our giving up the struggle in despair. Such is the case with those who preach, take the world as it is, sit down as calmly and comfortably as you can, and be contented with all these miseries. When you receive blows, say they are not blows, but flowers. And when you are driven about like slaves, say that you are free. Day and night tell lies to others and to your own souls, because that is the only way to live happily. This is what is called practical wisdom, and never was it more prevalent in the world than in this 19th century, because never were harder blows hit than at the present time. Never was competition keener. Never were men so cruel to their fellow men as now, and therefore must this consolation be offered. It is put forward in the strangest way at the present time, but it fails, as it always must fail. We cannot hide a carrion with roses. It is impossible. It would not avail long, for soon the roses would fade, and the carrion would be worse than ever before. So with ourselves. We may try to cover our old and festering sores with cloth of gold, but there comes a day when the cloth of gold is removed and the sore in all its ugliness is revealed. Is there no hope then? True it is that we are all slaves of Maya. And notice that the Swami does not accept himself. I could tell you stories about the Swami's life that let you know that he very much felt and acted out the truths of what he just said. We are all in it. Is there no hope then? True it is that we are all slaves of Maya, born in Maya and live in Maya. Is there then no way out, no hope? That we are all miserable, that this world is really a prison, that there is even our so-called trailing beauty, but it is a prison house, and that even our intellects and minds are prison houses and have been known for ages upon ages? There has never been a man, there has never been a human soul who has not felt this some time or other, however he may talk. And the old people feel it most, because in them there is the accumulated experience of a whole life, because they cannot be easily cheated by the lie of nature. Is there no way out? We find that with all this, with this terrible fact before us, in the midst of sorrow and suffering, even in this world where life and death are synonymous, even here, there is still a small voice that is ringing through all ages, through every country and in every heart. This, my Maya, is divine, made up of qualities and very difficult to cross. Yet those that come unto me cross the river of life. Come to me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. This is the voice that is leading us forward. The first voice is Krishna. This, my Maya, is divine, made up of qualities, and very difficult to cross. Yet those that come unto me, cross the river of life. And then Christ, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. This is the voice that is leading us forward. Man has heard it and is hearing it all through the ages. This voice comes to them. This voice comes to men when everything seems to be loss and hope has fled. When man's dependence on his own strength has been crushed down and everything seems to melt away between his fingers, and life is a hopeless ruin. Then he hears it. This is called religion. On the one side, therefore, is the bold assertion that this is all nonsense, that this is Maya. But along with it, there is the most hopeful assertion that beyond Maya, there is a way out. On the other hand, practical men tell us, don't bother your heads about such nonsense as religion and metaphysics. Live here. This is a very bad world indeed, but make the best of it. Which, put in plain language, means live a hypocritical, lying life, a life of continuous fraud, covering all the sores in the best way you can. Go on putting patch after patch until everything is lost and you are a mass of patchwork. This is what is called practical life. Those that are satisfied with this patchwork will never come to religion. Religion begins with a tremendous dissatisfaction with the present state of things, with our lives, and a hatred, an intense hatred for this patching up of life, an unbounded disgust for fraud and lies. Here alone can be religious. He alone can be religious who dares say, as the mighty Buddha once said, under the bo tree, when the idea of practicality appeared before him, and he saw that it was nonsense, and yet could not find a way out, when the temptation came to him to give up his search after truth, to go back to the world and live the old life of fraud, calling things by wrong names, telling lies to oneself and to everybody. He, the great, the giant, conquered it and said, death is better than vegetating ignorant life. It is better to die on the battlefield than to live a life of defeat. This is the basis of religion. When a man takes this stand, he is on the way to find the truth. He is on the way to God. That determination must be the first impulse toward becoming religious. I will hew out a way for myself. I will know the truth or give up my life in the attempt. For on this side, it is nothing. It is gone. It is vanishing every day. The beautiful, hopeful young person of today is the veteran of tomorrow. Hopes and joys and pleasures will die like blossoms with tomorrow's frost. That is one side. On the other, there are the great chasms. There are the great charms of conquest, victories over all the ills of life, victory over life itself, the conquest. That is one side. On the other, there are the great charms of conquest, victories over all the ills of life, victory over life itself, the conquest of the universe. On that side, men can stand. Those who dare, therefore, to struggle for victory, for truth, for religion, are in the right way, and that is what the Vedas preach. Be not in despair. The way is very difficult, like walking on the edge of a razor, yet despair not. Arise, awake, and find the ideal, the goal. So we have a few minutes left before the hour. Any comments or questions?
Brother Shankara.
Mm-hmm. Honey.
So it just seems like throughout the writing, Swamiji is kind of challenging his reader. And
It's not a question of reader. He didn't write this. He spoke it.
Yeah.
In 1896.
Right. Right. And I also feel like many of the spiritual leaders, he came in anticipation to later events that would occur in history, such as, I don't know. I just wonder whether the European Enlightenment, or I guess the small E Enlightenment, such as the movement propagated by Swami Vivekananda, really addressed war, whether like the wars that occurred in the 21st century.
He foresaw both World War I and World War II. Yes.
So I'm wondering whether he fully addressed them. That I don't know if he could have prevented. Like, I know one person by himself can't prevent a war, but whether there was an adequate mobilization, or at least teaching that could try to foresee these events.
What the Swami said was there must be a change of heart, or Europe will come to ruin. And those two wars, of course, were ruinous. And out of that came what? A very different and now united Europe. That is, rather than fighting one another, helping one another.
Brother Shankara, this
It must be transformation.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I thought you, sorry. I was not sure if you were finished.
I'm finished now.
Okay, sorry about that. So I think I got the answer to what I said earlier. And I think not only the answer, I think I do what Swamiji said. Basically, I said earlier that this, if I'm facing challenges, I interpret that, okay, this is Maya, whatever, I've done my best. But you said, no, Swamiji is going to challenge your thought on that. And Swamiji, from what I understand, he's saying you should pursue religion, right? You should pursue that connection, whatever that description is about religion and spirituality and all of that. And I think,
Pursue freedom.
but
The pursuit of freedom is religion.
right, right. I have to say this, that if I am having challenges, and one of the things I have grown up with, I have all these mantras, the Gayatri mantra and the Hanuman Chalisa and all of that. I think when I start chanting those, in a way, I'm trying to connect with religion to give me strength, to give me that freedom to get out of that issue that I'm facing. I just thought if that was relevant, I thought I'll share with everyone.
Good. Thank you, Rishikesh. Persist. Persist.
Yep.
Make it a daily practice, and it will slowly and slowly change everything.
Yep. Thank you.
Anyone else? Please.
Yes, I have a kind of a perspective. Obviously, Swami Vivekananda was very intellectual, and the way he lays it all out is interesting. But I guess my personal experience is you can't really come to it using the intellect alone. You can't use logic and reason your way into understanding what he's trying to say. Fully understanding, really understanding. Do you have a perspective on that?
I couldn't agree with you more. It's not a question of intellect, and this is what the Swami is telling us. It must be a question of your experience. You must respond to the challenge that he's laid out. Are you going to be trapped by Maya or not? And that is our everlasting challenge. And he already mentioned walking on the razor's edge. It's a very difficult thing to do. But it is, unless we're going to be slaves to Maya, then we must. And we use the balance pole of our intellectual understanding. Think of a person on a tightrope. They have a balance pole. We use the balance pole of our intellectual understanding of the teachings we've been given. This is the Shravana, the hearing, the teachings from an illumined soul, and then Manana, the intellectual effort to understand those as compared and contrasted with the way we have been thinking, speaking, and acting. So our understanding is our balance pole, our understanding of those teachings. And so we walk, insisting on the truth of the teachings and not the way we have normally and for a long time thought, spoken, and acted. So it takes both. It takes both. But you're right, absolutely right, that the intellect alone will not do it. We must do the practice. And next week, we'll take up what the Swami recommends as practice. He said that it is only experiences that change things for us, only our experiences. And so then he will tell us as we go on through this talk how to gain those experiences. which of course are the discoveries of the great teachers from the Vedas, which are apparently the oldest scriptures in the world, right through the Judaic tradition, the Christian tradition, the Buddhist tradition, the Islamic tradition. They all have their teachers saying the same basic things in various ways. Truth is one, sages call it by many names. So you're right, the intellect alone will not do it. Thank you. Anything else from anyone?
Yeah, Brother Shankara, this is Swam again.
Yes, dear. So glad to hear from you.
I thought I had developed a bit of a regular schedule. I was doing my mantra at least 2 times a day, and come to a point where I think that at least for brief periods I was able to focus on the mantra itself, and then my ishta, and definitely manana, attending the talks and reading. It was very much part of my life. But since this particular health challenge, even there, I mean, I told the mantra, but it was so difficult because the medicines were making me drowsy. Then I would forget my count, and so obviously it was more mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess I just have to wait because this ego's, what should I say, the appropriating function of the body is too strong.
Well,
So,
until the body heals,
yeah.
all you can do, and don't worry about your count. For the time being, don't worry about your count. Simply just say the mantra as much and as best you can, and just take refuge in the mantra and in your ishta, in
Okay.
this health challenge. Yes, when we have to take medicines and all of those things, they do interfere with our ability to hold our concentration. But there is still power in the mantra, even if we're saying it mechanically. Holy Mother is very adamant about that. So thanks for bringing that up, Swayam, and I'm sure it concerns you, but don't let it worry you. Don't let it fret you. You're doing wonderfully.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Anything else from anyone?
One last comment, Brother Shankara. He said death is better than a vegetating, ignorant life. Ignorant life is not knowing self, what he is talking and leading us to. When we don't know ourselves, I know we will struggle through, but we will die. All of us will come and die. But the ignorance is we're not knowing ourselves, not looking within ourselves, what
Yes.
is within us. And that's what it is. He is pointing it out. True religion is knowing yourself. I think that's what I have read several places. True religion is, Swami Vivekananda says, it's knowing your self-realization is the true religion.
Yes.
That's what I'm grasping from this
Each
paragraph.
soul is potentially divine. The goal of human life is to manifest that divinity.
Exactly. The God within. God within
And
us.
but every one of these action and experience suits is going to fall apart.
It's true.
What have we done with it in the meantime? And it isn't like there's any compulsion. There is no dogma, no doctrine that says you must. The Swami is just presenting you with the case for why you might want to decide for yourself that you must. Otherwise, where do you remain?
You're
So
right. Thank you.
each of us decides for ourselves.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jaime. Anything else from anyone?
I know we're out of time,
We're
but
not out of time, Sonny. Don't fret about it.
I know. Just an extension of my question. So, what does Vivekananda say is the cause of war, of
Ignorance.
conflict?
It's a, ignorance and selfishness.
Okay.
That's the cause of war. And we're. Let me tell you a story, Sonny. During the Vietnam War, which the great mass of the American population had come to conclude was a misbegotten and terrible war. Krishnamurti, who was a friend of Swami Prabhavananda's in Southern California. Krishnamurti lived in Ojai, maybe 75 miles from the Hollywood Center. He came to see the Swami one day, so to see Swami Prabhavananda. And he said, perhaps if the two of us pray, use our combined efforts and pray for the end of this war, something good will happen. And Swami Prabhavananda said, what, you and I? Jesus Christ came to this world and there is still war? What do you think you and I can do? No, the idea is, Sonny, is to transform ourselves. Transform ourselves. In Mahatma Gandhi was able to lead the way he led because he had transformed himself. If we wish to be a leader against the ills of the world, the thing to do is transform yourself. And in that self-transformation, there will arise whatever the proper motivations are for going forward, whether those be large social things or simply small acts of loving kindness and compassion toward other individuals. It'll come to you. As Sri Ramakrishna says, as your ego is purified, as your mind is purified, you become like an expert dancer. You cannot put a foot wrong. So just go through the process of self-transformation, which is, as the Swami pointed out, a war in itself. It's a great struggle because, as he said, there are ages behind us. Ages of accumulated impressions. So if we wish to do good in the world, the first thing to do is do good to ourselves. That is to say, transform yourself, purify the mind, purify the ego, purify the heart, which in this time, we have had two great teachers in a row say that the way right now is chanting the name. Sri Chaitanya's prayer, chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. Now, if you take those two promises seriously, of what will happen if you chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that's a lot of motivation to find, either through Diksha, initiation, or just on your own, find a mantra and chant it. Sri Ramakrishna said the path for this time is chanting the name of the Lord. It is the bhakta's path. that chanting the name is. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, chapter 5, which starts on page 132, and you'll hear what Sri Ramakrishna has to say about that in detail. But it's self-transformation that leads to transformation in the world. And it will never, ever, as long as Maya exists, which in Maya is a fact of manifestation, it will never ultimately triumph. It will always be like Gandhi's victory, like Martin Luther King's victory. It makes progress, but the underlying problem of ignorance, the mass of ignorance, is still there. And thanks for bringing that up, Sonny. That's exactly what we're talking about. How do we end the misery? Well, first we end it for ourselves. It doesn't mean that the misery and the suffering goes away. It's just that it's a very different experience for you. Anything else from anyone?
Yes, I just want to say real quickly, I found that story about Krishnamurti and Swami Prabhavananda extremely fascinating. I'd never heard that before. So about the praying and what Swami's response was.
I'm sorry, Aaron, what were you saying?
I was just saying what the Swami's response was just astounding.
Yes. And that story was told to me by Swami Prabhavananda's assistant right-hand person. So it was this is not apocryphal. This is something that actually happened.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I think a couple of years ago or 1 year ago, you mentioned that what deserves my attention is the question that we need to answer. You said it in one of our lectures on Sundays. And then you also said through self-surrendering, we can realize our oneness within ourselves. Turn your attention to Atma, to silence, like meditation.
Yes, and that question, what deserves my attention, is not a question we answer once. It's a question we answer 1,000 times a day.
That's right, continuously. Right, you're right.
Does this deserve my attention?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes we find that what we're doing doesn't deserve our attention, and we go ahead and do it anyway. As Swami Sarvapriyananda said, why? Because we like it. Okay,
That's
just
right.
accept the fact. You like it. It is not the highest or best use of your time. It's not the ideal. Don't be hypocritical about it. Just say, well, I'm doing it anyway because I like it. And when you stop liking it, you will stop doing it. And that's why the Swami talked about hatred and disgust earlier. At some point, when you see these things that you're doing and you continue to do them anyway because something in you likes them, a certain disgust arises. It's spontaneous. It's not a judgment. It's not some doctrine or dogma that's imposed. It's an experience that you have. Enough, enough, enough. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityor Ma Amrutangamaya. Abir Abir Moiti. O dearly beloved, lead us from Maya to realization of the truth. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. And the secret of that first part of that mantra, Om Asato Ma Satgamaya, when we achieve realization of the truth, we then understand the truth of what Krishna says when he says, my Maya is divine. Any final thought from anyone? All right. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. May you go forward in the Divine Mother's loving and protective embrace. So our next opportunity to meet will be on Saturday at noon, at 11 a.m. for the class on Swami Prabhupananda's Realizing God. And then on Sunday, we're going to celebrate Swami Brahmananda's birthday with a short talk on the Swami. This will be at 11 a.m. It'll be streamed, live streamed from the chapel. A short talk on Brahmananda and his life and his amazing work. And then Aditya will do a worship service that offers our hearts to divine. And anyone who would like to sing during that puja, anyone who would like to offer a song, please email me and I'll get that coordinated. Oh, it sounds like somebody's starting a helicopter in the background somewhere.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
All right. Jai Shri Guru
Thank you.
Maharaj Ji Ki Jai.
Good night, everyone.
night.
Thank you.
And so good to see you, Swayam.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear.